Dígríomh Corda, it's Misha Owen. I'm Owen from Bite Size Irish, and I'm very happy to have a special guest with us today, Mike Collins from A Letter from Ireland. Mike, Fáilte Jack, how's it going?
Mil Margaret, Anawa vocal. Greetings, Lost
I don't
Corky.
want to put you, I don't want to put you under pressure, but fair play, Gur Mahagut, for using your bit of gaeilge as well. So, Mike, you're a Cork man. I'm a Clare man. There's a bit of tension there.
Just a little bit, not too much. Both Munster.
So, Mike, I got to know you because you run A Letter from Ireland. Can you give us a quick overview of what is A Letter from Ireland? What are people interested in? And why might people sign up quickly? And we'll talk about it more as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you. I might be speaking for a little while on in that case. Basically, A Letter from Ireland is an email letter that goes out every Sunday morning from our house here in County Cork. I write it along with Karina, my wife, at the odd time. She certainly has a big input in any case. And it goes out to currently around about 40,000 people of Irish descent around the world. So thankfully it's growing at a clip at the moment, and that's probably going to reach 75,000 this year. So we're very happy with that. And basically what we chat about in there on is, I guess, subjects of relevance to people of Irish ancestry. So you have cultural elements like chatting about kind of, you know, it might be places, it might be surnames, it might be stories and characters. And also, I suppose, we have a fairly big emphasis on the whole Irish family history side of things, where we ask people for the surnames in their family tree to share them, to share maybe some of the people and the stories. And I guess this kind of virtuous loop has established itself over the years on, whereby we send out the letter on a Sunday, and I guess by about Wednesday, we receive, in hundreds of replies, basically, just to say hi. But often buried in there is a very interesting story that feeds back into the following letters as well. So it's something we started back in 2013, actually, the letter itself, so 10 years old this year. And, you know, I had no idea, A, there would be an audience or a group out there, or B, that they'd be halfway interested in what we have to say. But at this stage, you know, it's got its own momentum. And we're loving what we're doing ourselves from here in County Cork.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, congratulations on what you have achieved. And it's obviously very useful and informative for people, that people are hanging around and interacting. Like, that shows a real sense of heart of the people that you do interact with. There's a bit of Irish language, so I'd like to find that connection. So over at Bite Size Irish, we've got people learning to speak the Irish language, and it is worldwide.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people in the United States, and a good chunk of people in Ireland nowadays as well with Bite Size Irish. And we've chatted about this, the two of us, Mike, that there's really that finding a sense of belonging and personal connection through the language. So that's how I see it. But it's probably a similar story with your audience. And there's a bit of Irish language, say, with surnames as well, isn't there?
Yeah. I guess, though, and just if we go back to that time in 2013 when we started off the letter, one of the things we noticed, we started off on Facebook, believe it or not, where we found people, you know, we were putting up pictures because we were walking around this lovely countryside of ours. And we noticed people from around the world, especially of Irish ancestry, maybe saying something like, oh, that's a lovely picture of such and such a place, let's say in the Beara Peninsula. Oh, my family come from there, and they're whoever, let's say the O'Sullivans. Can you tell me about this aspect of the O'Sullivans? And then we kind of noticed other people jumping in and giving responses. And we were kind of scratching our heads saying, that doesn't quite sound right. And what it led me to realize on is just how embedded the Irish language is in our psyche here in Ireland, because it's inside all those place names. It's inside the actual surnames, obviously, and understanding how the surnames, for example, evolved from the original Irish into their current, I suppose, kind of literally, you're an O'Connor in English, and you're an O'Crahur, for example, in Irish. And of course, O'Crahur comes from an Irish first name in the first place. And just understanding that evolution can give people a really, really strong connection and feeling as to where their Irish heritage came from, no matter where they are in the world. And I suppose the last thing to say about the Irish language, besides surnames and place names for us, is we kind of realized just how much we speak in an Irish idiom, even though we use the English language. We tend to structure our sentences. We tend to say things that came from the original Irish. And therefore, when we start to see these questions popping up on Facebook all those years ago, we kind of found we had more answers at our fingertips than we realized because of that knowledge. That we realized, you know what, if you grow up in Tasmania, even if you're Irish descent, or you grow up in Canada, or you grow up in, let's say, New Jersey or wherever, you don't necessarily have that same grasp. You're fumbling around the place a little bit more. So it's been nice for us to engage with the Irish language in that particular way, without getting people necessarily speaking it like you do, but actually just understanding the structure underneath and seeing how it could help them with understanding the heritage and more about their own family history.
Yeah, great. I'd love to tap into more of your knowledge, your domain knowledge of doing that family history research. But you mentioned yourself and Karina, your wife, you were looking at, around 2013, stuff online around family history
Yeah.
research, local information. Give me a sense, how come you were interested in this? Where does this come from?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Well, if you kind of look, okay, so if I take just one string, and just pull at that string for a moment, my father was now he's gone now 5 years, but he was a Collins, as am I, and I would follow Irish naming patterns. So I'd be named after my grandfather, being the eldest boy, and the Collinses came down from more or less around Brewery and Adair and Limerick, around that general area, around the 1100s to County Cork. And they kind of stayed down where they were in West Cork, my own particular family, let's say, probably for the best part of the last 300 years. And since that time, in the last maybe 150 years, they just exploded all around the world, literally. So if you take my own father, he went over to Bristol first in the UK in the 1950s, and then to London to rebuild. He was a carpenter after the war. Met my mother, who's from County Galway. I was born over there and then returned back to Ireland. And if we bring that right up to the present day, in 2013, when we started the Letter from Ireland, our eldest boy, Evan, he emigrated as well to the UK. So you got this pattern of emigration. And I think what you'll find is once emigration happens, it really enforces your sense of national identity hugely and starts kind of triggering off that where do we come from? How do we get here? What makes us different from the people around us? So I certainly had that personal experience. And I think a lot of people, it's kind of puts you in tune with a lot of people in the so-called Irish diaspora. And sometimes you come across a lot of people on the island of Ireland who never left it in the first place and have 22 cousins living around the corner and can't see why would they want to leave. They don't necessarily get that particular point. Very happy to see people coming back and welcome them. But I suppose my own interest was really inside my own story, actually, Owen. And interestingly enough, by the way, Evan, our eldest boy, who left in 2013, he's still over in the UK. And we started the letter and I suppose the green room and the business to distract ourselves and to get out and about because we were becoming empty nesters, And the full circle has happened because he now started working for us as of last year. So now he's full time working with us, which is very, very nice. And
Mm.
even talking to him at the age of young 30s, he has that immigrant experience as well, where he appreciates and acknowledges just what that feeling is.
Yeah, fantastic. And thanks for sharing that personal thread. Do you find that this knowledge of your past, your heritage, have you found a truer sense of connection or where you sit in the world because of this knowledge?
Well, the short answer was yes. And um, yeah, I mean, it's astounding. I mean, we actually did a letter just last weekend on Marconi, who I just can't remember the first name. Guadalamo, I think, is the actual Italian first name. But he, of course, is, I suppose, the father of wireless communication. You could argue he's the person that really kicked into play this aspect of worldwide communication, on top of which the internet is based, and top of which is based the fact that we can talk together today on video and have a chat, even though we're just up the road from each other. But that aspect of actually, since we started 10 years ago, the connection with that worldwide diaspora, we've established so many friends, so many personal connections, an insight into people's lives, an understanding of the hardships that their ancestors actually would have gone through to put them where they are today. It's actually been astounding, it's quite frankly, to be inside a story looking out all the time, inside other people's stories looking out, and making those connections that, quite frankly, I suppose 15, 20 years ago would not have been possible in the same way.
Yeah,
So, yes.
there's something quite sacred there to be part of that, to be part of people's stories. They open their hearts, I'm sure. And do you see people successfully finding more of a sense of connection and finding details about their own family's history? Of course, that's what people come to achieve anyway, to you, right?
Yeah, I think people come for that and they kind of stay for other reasons as well. It's kind of often, people have questions on their mind, they need answers. And it might be, something as simple as my parents were Sullivans from Ireland, where they likely have come from. I wonder specifically where they came from. But then when they start to engage, you often find that it's the journey that starts to take over, the journey of discovery, the wider sense of what it's like to be a Sullivan from the Beara Peninsula, where that sits, in I suppose, the historical perspective, the cultural perspective, understanding how the surname came around, all of those things basically. So what we do notice is that most people do engage in the first place because they want short, sharp answers in a way, but they hang around because of the richness, if you like, of the community and the communication and so on.
Lovely, yeah. So to bridge that next step, so I can imagine there's people watching and listening to this who are getting a bit interested. They could see themselves doing this type of research,
Yeah.
finding that connection. They're definitely feeling that sense of need of connection. I'm sure there's plenty of people watching this who have that sense. So you're really speaking with people who are watching this and listening to this. So, Mike, where do we start? And let's say I don't have too much information. I know who my grandparents were. Where do I start when we're
Yeah.
talking about doing family history research in Ireland?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can tackle this in a couple of ways. Basically, one of the things I'd say is that people have become very interested in doing this sort of thing. And in some ways, I don't like the word research because, that
Mhm.
makes it sound very, very difficult. And it is difficult, but unlike it being kind of ordered research, it's basically controlled. You're just tripping away. You're just tripping over all the time across new facts and figures and wondering what the heck that is and trying not to skin your knees. And you're trying to trip less. And you're trying to look around you and see who else is doing this and make some connections with other people. And if I was to answer the very, very specific question, you don't necessarily start in Ireland. That's the first thing. Um, I would say that things like ancestry.com, which is an absolutely wonderful tool for, let's say, building your tree, and it's a paid tool, of course, building your tree, making connections. But in some ways, they've tried to make all this seem easy and quite vanilla and lots of suggestions thrown at you. But Irish ancestry research is actually there's some things that make it different to other countries because we started off with a different language, which is Irish, and then it became English. But if you think about, let's say, German records, they started mostly German and they stayed mostly German, for example, and they continuity there to a large degree. So, there are things you need to be aware of, as in what's different about Irish family history research. But to answer your question very directly, the way people need to start is where they are now and right now. So in other words, get a blank sheet of paper out, write your own name in a square, ideally the actual date of birth, and I presume you're still alive, so there's no date of death. And you start to work your way back from there, basically. So what do you know for a fact? So establish what you know for a fact. And what I'd start to say then is you're starting to notice there's a tree. This is the stuff you know. So, but choose, let's say, a particular person. It might be your grandparent, it might be your great-grandparent. And now let's say you want to focus in on those. So again, start a timeline, start to establish what you know about this person, maybe starting if they're dead at this point, starting at the date of their death and working backwards to the place they were born and who their parents were. And notice the gaps that are in there. And most of those particular gaps for most people are actually going to be in their current country where they live, not back in Ireland. So, if you had a great-great-grandparent that emigrated from County Clare to New Jersey back in 1850 in New Jersey as opposed to in Ireland. So filling in those blanks with what you know, talking to the people around you before you ever make the leap back to Ireland is the way to go. That's the first thing. The last thing I'd say, the last thing I'd say then is once you got your facts around you like that, it's actually then what sort of questions you need to actually get answers for. Like, where in Ireland was my earliest immigrant ancestor born? That might be the question now you're going for. But keep it very, very specific. Keep it down to a particular person or a couple and actually start then to get the answer to those questions. That's how I would start. And I guess maybe just to finally say, I do believe we're going to put in the show notes, we'll give you a link to the 3 steps to starting your Irish family history research that we publish as well. So it might be useful for people to have a look at that too.
Fantastic. So we're going to put a link to that resource in the show notes and in the YouTube video description as well. So I'll step back a bit, Mike, and I'll summarize my understanding because this is very interesting. From what I understood, you start with what you know, but you start with yourself. That's the clearest piece of information you have. It could get quite fuzzy or hazy very quickly, like where was my grandparent born? What date were they born? Maybe I don't know. But to work on what you do know and to build on top of what you know and to use that as a method to step by step try to find a little bit more information, but you're focusing on one part as well, because it could probably feel very daunting that you've got a list of 10, 15 people in front of you and you don't know where to go. So you use the focus on a certain person and at least try to find more information on that person. And from what I also understood, the connection broke a little for me, but from what I understood was that there might be gaps in understanding in the country where you are now, rather than you can't just make a jump straight back to Ireland if that's how your family history went. You have to build up the story in your current country or countries. There's complicated stories, of course. But to go back to the connection to Ireland with a certain specific piece of information. When people get to that Irish part, what's possible? How far back can you go? Or I guess it varies depending on the family, right?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, as you say there, you start off by saying, okay, you got your grandfather, for example, and you might be unsure as to their date of birth, for example. But the nice thing is you're in Ireland, and in Ireland we actually have very good access to a lot of civil records that I could literally find. I would be pretty sure if your grandfather or grandmother or great grandfather, great grandmother were born after 1865, that I could actually show you the actual piece of paper that says their name, where they were born, the date, the names of their parents, which is a key point, of course, because it brings you back another generation again, and so on. And likewise, we could work forward from there, and I could probably show you one of those grandparents' marriage records. Because again, we're actually one of, although the word has gone out there are big gaps in our records, which is true to an extent. We actually have very good and freely available civil records available from certainly 1865 onwards. Now, if you go back before that, you're kind of relying on both land records, like tithes of various sorts, and you're relying on church records, birth, marriage, deaths, and other incidental records as well to kind of gather and research and so on. So there's a number of understanding what's out there in terms of Irish research is key. But some people say things like, "Oh yeah, well, you know what, my grandfather was born before 1840, or my people were." But if then you could look at death records, and it's amazing what you can find out from death records as to when a person might have been born, for example, because their age of death is down there as well. So understanding the actual approaches, understanding what's in the records and what's not in the records starts to become really important. If you're switching countries, like if you're starting in New Jersey in the States, you have state records, you have federal records, and then, of course, you have immigration-related records before you jump back to Ireland. But for the most part, it is a question about tying specific records back to the facts that you're guessing at in the first place. And as you carefully work your way back, tying the records to those facts to either prove or disprove them. So to answer your question, there are some parts of Ireland where the church records go back into the 1700s, and some parts, mostly in the Gaelic-speaking, impoverished western places like County Clare. Sorry, that was a little jibe there, the Clare man. County Clare, where, church records were very, very bitty right up to the 1880s, for example, in a lot of places. So, it kind of depends on the location. And sometimes you need to kind of go towards secondary sources to figure things out. But I do know some people get very upset when they say, you know what, I've worked my German ancestors back to the 1660s, and I only have my Irish ancestors back to 1901. What's wrong with Ireland? Well, what's wrong with Ireland is a few things. Like we were a colony for many, many years. There was a change in language. There was lots and lots of different things to kind of, with regards to the establishment of a record system and with regards to running of that particular record system. But for the most part, that record system we do have in place is online and freely available to all to use. So it's a bit of a balance there between how far you can get back, but at the same time, the record sets a very wide range you have freely available to you that can give you very interesting clues. But the other thing I'd say as well is DNA testing can bring you back further in some instances, but probably more importantly, it ties you down to areas rather than maybe specific families and specific people. So you are an O'Connor, for example, from County Clare. And, if you look at Ireland and where the tribal O'Connors came from in the first place, you have a group up there in, let's say, the north of Kerry and into Limerick. And you have a group there up in the north of County Clare as well. And then, of course, you have the Royal O'Connors, the Rory O'Connors and so on, off there into Offaly and kind of north there into Connacht and so on. So, if I was speaking to you and we were having a general chat, we'd be kind of maybe having a shot at which group of O'Connors you were from in the first place. and making a link back in the records as far as we can go, but kind of firmly establishing the likelihoods of you coming from one group versus another, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. And there's what comes to mind is there are online resources. There can be a lot of knowledge within the family already too when you go digging, right?
Yeah. Yes, and that really goes back to your first question, where do you start? Because you start by talking to people. You know, I remember my father before he died. I remember we were talking about the books I'd written, and he was very interested in those. And I remember asking him the question, and he was probably 80, 87 at the time. And I said, you know, are you interested in genealogy? And he said, no, straight out, no. And at the same time, he could give you the name of every family in every townland for a radius of 10 miles of a town called Ballyhob in West Cork. So, you know, he didn't call it genealogy, but he had some knowledge of the interconnections between people, who was who married who, what was there before that pub was there, who was in that field, what was the name of that field, why was it a bad field for cows. He knew all this stuff, basically. So talking to the people around you is actually a key part. And you'll always find the enthusiasts if you actually dig deep enough. And the other thing I'd say, and we always encourage people when they come to Ireland, give yourself a bit of extra time and start talking to the locals. Because often the phone will come out when you ask them a question, and they'll get on to Jimmy Mick down the road, who's interested in that kind of stuff, and they'll start pointing things out, and they'll start connecting you with people as well. So in other words, talking to people you know and talking to living people and taking the chance, it's part of the fun, but it's also a hugely important part of, you know, enriching, at least enriching the facts you have, if not actually uncovering more facts.
Yeah, so I'd like to pull at that thread a little bit more. Let's assume a lot of people listening now are not inside Ireland and they
Yeah.
have this curiosity, they want to find out more. How much is possible online? And then at what point would you kind of suggest, look, you're much better putting your feet down on the ground in Ennis or wherever you are, whatever lovely place of Ireland you're in, and asking questions locally.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, we get a lot of people. They visit Ireland, and sometimes they're a little bit sorry that they didn't do more research beforehand to kind of guide them towards the places that their ancestors might have worked and walked all those years ago. So it's a little bit of a balance there, Owen. I think it's important to do some research before you visit Ireland to get an indication of place that you might want to visit, and then when you have that indication of place that your O'Connors more than likely came out of this town near Kanturk in County Cork back in this particular year. And when you visit there, you start talking to people, or maybe you have one or two contacts there, if that makes sense. So I think it's a balance between the two all the time. And sometimes you get people who are complete, I suppose, computer jockeys, and they're only interested in the online connections. And then sometimes you just people, they just want to wallow in the feeling of literally walking on the same field that their ancestor once farmed. And they don't really give a monkey's about any record that you could throw at them because they know their place and they know their people.
Yeah, I can appreciate that real sense of feeling that you get by being in the location. There's something very special about that. And for me, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely I can relate to that. If I'm in a special place, I can really strongly feel that. So I can really appreciate that. Yeah. So for people who are doing research or this following their curiosity
Yeah.
online, before we talk about a letter from Ireland specifically and how you've got a community around you, how you can help specifically, what are, say, the top two or three resources that always come up for people doing family history research for Irish ancestry?
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm quite happy to give you these for the show notes as well. But there are quite a number of government sponsored online record sources. run. So all the civil records I mentioned, birth, marriages, deaths, are there online and available for free from 1865 onwards. And that's actually run by the government. And you can see the link below if you want. You then actually have the various baptismal records, the church records of various sorts. A lot of them are actually available mostly to search across the island of Ireland. Some you have to browse directly. It's a bit more kind of fragmented than the civil records. Mm-hmm. You also have a lot of the land records and the census records, such as 1901, 1911 for census. Land records go back to Griffith's valuation, again available for free back there in the mid-1800s. And one of the really interesting resources we find is what called johngrenham.com. And John, who's an absolutely fantastic Irish genealogist and a great man, very, very, very droll, very funny, very interesting, but he's put together a really interesting way of looking at the surnames and the record sets of Ireland. And the good news is very early on, we connected with John. And although you can go in there and use his resource, I think it's free for 1 or 2 goes. It then will cost you something after that. But if you're a Greenroom member, which is the paid community you mentioned that we run, you can access it for free. So we've actually a partnership in there as well. So there are quite a number of, as I said, again, surprising resources available with free access. Now, on top of that, then you have a number of bodies, obviously the big sites like Ancestry.com, Find My Past, My Heritage, and so on. But Ancestry.com, it's kind of interesting. They run their searches kind of in a way that you're looking for an ancestor in Germany or Ireland or the US. It's kind of the same access points, the same presentation, but in a lot of cases you can actually get more information that they're not licensed to share inside Ancestry. So sometimes you kind of have to know that what you're using at the moment, although you might think gives you everything, doesn't actually give you everything. So understanding what is available and isn't available and where to get it. Again, we do give the kickoff, the starters for that information in the 3 steps to getting started link I was sharing with you. And but that's kind of a summary of it, basically, Owen, if that makes sense. So in summary, if you're using Ancestry and only Ancestry at the moment to research your Irish family tree, that's good, but you're probably missing a lot of stuff that's there as well, especially if you don't understand what record sets are not available or not available inside Ancestry. And then if you actually, the other point to notice is there's probably more stuff available for free Irish record-wise than you think there is. And I suppose the third point I make is that it's really useful, and this is back to you, to have a bit of fundamental knowledge of Irish place names and geography, and Irish surnames, and a little bit of the Irish language that binds them all together before you go looking at those records. Because you'll come across townlands, you'll come across surnames and first names that you might need to interpret because they change according to time and location and so on. So understanding a few things before you go searching is important as well. Now, I kind of wandered on there a bit. I'm not sure, did I give you what you wanted there?
Absolutely. Well, it's that kind of domain knowledge of, like, there's, in our world, there's so much information, right? And it's, the question is, how do I get at that information? What do I do with that information? There's data there, but maybe not a lot of obvious information of where do I start. So you mentioned your free resource, 3 steps to researching your Irish family tree. So we're going to link to that in the show notes. But I'd like to understand more. You mentioned the green room. We've mentioned it a couple of times, but I'd like to properly introduce it. So could you let us know what is the green room? Who are the people who end up coming into the green room, and what do they get from it? Why do they stay around?
Yeah. So we built this thing called the Green Room back in 2014, so relatively early days. And currently we have over 4,000 members inside that community who essentially were at one stage only subscribers to the Letter from Ireland. And what happened in the early days is people started to ask us a lot of questions around, well, genealogy and their specific situations. And we quickly realized, look, here's something we can't possibly answer ourselves directly. A, because we're not really qualified, and B, we just can't give everybody the time. So why don't we start off this thing where we can actually get people together in a forum? And we did that. It was called the Green Room. And over the years, we built up training materials, which kind of really focus on why Irish family research is different to others, and a roadmap of how to kind of approach it. We've also included the services, the free services, 2 genealogists in there as well, one based in Ireland and one based in the USA. And they're absolutely fabulous with regards to domain knowledge. And also, of course, we have so many, I would say, amateur genealogists who are, let's say, they know so much about DNA, they know so much about particular regions, they know so much about maybe even the Irish language, like yourself. So you got this kind of group effect happening inside this thing called the Green Room. We've in fact had worldwide gatherings as well. We've got together 2 conferences at this stage. So it's very much a community feel. And I suppose what I noticed, and I said it there earlier, is people actually join in the first place. And we try to make it as reasonable as possible. It's around about $20 US a month at the moment, but there you have unlimited access to genealogists, which, if you through Ancestry would cost you thousands, for example. So you have that. You have people join because they want answers to their questions, but a lot of people stay because of the engagement in the community and the kind of oddball things that happen in there, and the sense of, yeah, we're all together in this. We all have this shared thing going on. And, I'm just loving it, really. So, it's that sort of, it's been surprising to me because, you have a community, somebody said to me once, when people start telling you to butt out a little bit when you're running the community, they're starting to take that ownership. And it's a bit like that old joke, the lunatics are taking over the asylum, but in the best possible way. And I felt that early days, I'd say back in 2016, I thought, oh, this is a little bit different. And we went along with it. And it's been absolutely fabulous since then, just to see people, again, just take the lead in welcoming people in, answering certain things because they're just interested, guiding people along, meeting up with people in the location, wherever they are. We have a map of where the members are and people can actually see that and they just connect themselves. We've been around, we've met members in Canada, in Australia, in the USA, in the UK, all across Ireland. We travel across Ireland doing Who Do You Think You Are type features. So we meet people all the time as well. And they meet each other. And it's been absolutely, again, just looking back, it's hard to put into words the set of experiences that actually accrued over the time,
Yeah, it sounds like you have something very special, and I've seen it with my own eyes as well. And congratulations on that. So I'd love to know where to from here. Like, you're, I would say, quite an innovative business group of people. Where do you see A Letter from Ireland and everything around that going from here?
Yeah, well, thank you. And I guess it's as I said, we're 10 years in at this stage, and we've tried and tested a number of different things like conferences, and we've written 3 books. We've hired full-time genealogists. The letter, I suppose, is the beating heart of what we do. It goes out every Sunday, and that'll keep on going. I think going forward, we took our son on, Evan, just over a year ago now. And although his focus was on growth, I would say that it was around mostly connecting with other people like yourself in a similar kind of vein around the world, doing similar things. And we're really getting more and more into that. And I think the other thing just to mention as well is we're probably coming to a size where we're honestly, we're probably the biggest in the world at what we do now with regards to the Irish focus. So we don't have much to compare with, if you like, in terms of community, which is okay. But what I feel we need to do more of now is find specific projects in Ireland that we find people get involved, get interested in, that they want to sponsor, they want to see happen. So it might be a historical or cultural project, and we'll put some of our heft behind it and actually just start to make it part of the story we're all interested in. It's interesting. We have some people in the group, and they have very, very strong connections to Ireland, even business wise, where they might be part owners of breweries or distilleries around Ireland. And they absolutely just love it, that sense of connection and so on. Well, in some ways, I think with regards to there's a lot of, how to say, amateur, maybe is the wrong word, but there's a lot of non-profit type organizations of all sorts around Ireland that people just love. It might be a workhouse somewhere that's just been run in a really interesting way, or it might be a place like the Family Museum in Strokestown, or it might be different things like that. We'd like to get more interested in and just help along more so with regards to putting the focus on some of these affairs. So that's my interest really, is kind of, I guess, kind of widening out that way to make more connections with people like yourself in the community and more connections with very specific initiatives in Ireland that we can get behind and see how they need help and engage in, because we actually just enjoy working with them.
Yeah, I love it. I get the sense that what you're building upon is a true sense of legacy that you're building. What the richness that you're providing and will provide. It's a real genuine energy, and I love that. So we mentioned a specific resource, Mike, the 3 steps to starting to research your Irish family tree. But apart from that, where should people find you? How can they connect with you?
Okay, I would suggest the best thing to do, if you're not already on the weekly letter from Ireland, is I think there'll be a link below. And just go to that link and sign up for the letter. You'll get your first one next Sunday. Hit reply when you do get it, and if you like it, and just say hi. Introduce yourself, share some of the surnames, and receive the letter a couple of times after that every Sunday. And I think you'll find after a while, you'll find if it's your thing or if it's not your thing. And, who knows, you might want to join the green room a little bit later, or you might just say, no, and grandma the letter, I want to do this thing instead. That's all fine. And, but I would say signing up for that particular email, the weekly letter, is the way to go on.
Fantastic. So we've got a clear call to action to get the letter from Ireland, a letter from Ireland. So, Mike, it's been a real pleasure. I've enjoyed several things, getting to know you a bit better, finding more of a common sense of connection between Bite Size Irish and a letter from Ireland too, and getting to know the domain knowledge that you obviously have much more than we've been able to cover today, but we have gotten a good sense of where somebody could start if they're curious, or maybe they had a false start before and they feel like they could really get going this time with this sense of direction. So I'll finish up, Mike, by saying Gur míle maith agat, and thanks so much for your time.
You're very, very welcome, Owen. It's been a pleasure. And I just love what you're doing it and how you and the team are doing it as well. I think it's very important work. So again, please do keep it up.
Gur míle maith agat, Mike. Okay, slán.
Slán.